Lieutenant Katie Morgan stood at the observation window of Harmony Prime Station, watching dozens of alien cadets train in the combat arenas below. The station was massive, large enough to hold 10,000 students from across the Galactic Coalition. Each training area was built for different species, with different gravity settings and atmospheric conditions. Some arenas had gravity twice as strong as Earth. Others were filled with methane gas for species that breathed it naturally. Katie had arrived at the academy 3 days ago. She was the first human combat instructor ever assigned to Harmony Prime. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Coalition 15 years earlier, and most aliens still saw them as newcomers. Weak newcomers from a garden world with gentle gravity and no natural predators worth mentioning. She watched a group of Zentari cadets sparring in one of the high-gravity arenas. The Zentari had 4 arms and dense muscle structure. Their homeworld had gravity 1.4 times stronger than Earth. They moved with brutal efficiency, using their extra limbs to grapple and strike simultaneously. The impacts of their blows echoed through the observation deck. "Impressive, are they not?" a voice said behind her. Katie turned to see Commander Vraxis approaching. He was Zentari himself, standing nearly 7 feet tall with blue-gray skin and 4 arms folded across his chest. He commanded the entire combat training division at Harmony Prime. "They are strong," Katie said simply. "Strong indeed. The Zentari have been warriors for 5,000 years. We bred for combat, evolved for it." Vraxis looked down at Katie, who stood only 5 feet 6 inches tall. "Your species is very new to warfare on a galactic scale." Katie did not reply. She had heard this speech before, in different forms, from different aliens. "I have reviewed your file, Lieutenant Morgan. Earth Special Forces, multiple combat certifications, hand-to-hand combat instructor for 8 years. Vraxis made a gesture with one of his hands that might have been a shrug, impressive for a human. "But you must understand the reality here. Our cadets come from warrior races, species that have conquered their worlds through strength. Earth was not conquered by one species," Katie said. "It was shared by many nations, many peoples." "Yes, I read that as well. Your world never unified until you met us. Too busy fighting amongst yourselves." Vraxis turned away from the window. "Come, the staff meeting begins in 10 minutes. Katie followed him through the corridors of Harmony Prime. Other instructors passed them, most of them taller and larger than any human. A few glanced at Katie with curiosity. Most ignored her completely. The staff meeting was held in a large conference room. 20 instructors sat around a curved table. Katie recognized a few species from her orientation materials. Corvan, Drexian, Heptari, and others she could not name. Only one other human was present. "Katie, over here," the human called out, waving to an empty seat beside him. Lieutenant Brandon Pierce was 32, with dark hair and tired eyes. He taught tactical theory at the academy, a role that kept him away from the combat arenas. "How are they treating you?" Brandon asked quietly as Katie sat down. "About how I expected," she replied. "They will try to sideline you. They did it to me. They will do it to you." Brandon leaned closer. "Humans are seen as diversity hires here. They let us teach because the coalition requires representation from all member species. But they do not take us seriously." Commander Vraxis called the meeting to order. He went through the schedule for the coming training cycle, assigning instructors to different classes and specialties. Advanced weapons training went to a Corvan instructor named Vex. Tactical combat formations went to a massive Drexian. Zero-gravity combat went to a Heptari who could naturally survive in vacuum. "And for basic conditioning," Vraxis said, looking directly at Katie. "Lieutenant Morgan will take Class 7D. Brandon winced beside her. "Class 7D? Katie asked. "What is that?" A few instructors made sounds that might have been laughter. "The remedial class," Vraxis explained. "Cadets who failed their preliminary combat assessments. 30 students from various species who need foundational improvement before they can join the regular training program." "I see," Katie said calmly. "I am sure your Earth conditioning exercises will be suitable for their level," Vraxis continued. "Nothing too strenuous, of course. We do not want injuries in the beginner class. More sounds of amusement from around the table. The meeting continued for another hour. Katie listened as other instructors discussed advanced combat techniques, weapon systems, and tactical scenarios. No one asked for her input. No one acknowledged her presence beyond that initial assignment. When the meeting ended, Brandon walked with Katie back toward the instructor quarters. Class 7D is where they put the failures, he said. Cadets who cannot keep up with their peers. The assignment is an insult. I know, Katie said. The last 2 human combat instructors quit within a month. They were given similar assignments. Treated like babysitters. Not teachers. Brandon stopped walking and looked at her seriously. No one expects you to succeed here. They want you to fail so they can point at humans and say we do not belong in their military. Then I will not fail, Katie said simply. Brandon smiled slightly. I like your confidence. But you need to understand what you are up against. These aliens come from high-gravity worlds with dangerous predators. They have natural weapons, enhanced strength, faster reflexes. Their entire evolution prepared them for combat. Humans evolved to throw spears at animals and run long distances. And to think, Katie added. We evolved to think. She left Brandon in the corridor and continued to her quarters. The room was small but functional, with a bed, desk, and personal terminal. Katie sat at the desk and pulled up the roster for Class 7D. 30 names appeared on the screen, along with species identifiers and performance scores. Most of the cadets had failed basic combat trials. Low scores in strength, speed, endurance, or tactical thinking. The roster included species from a dozen different worlds. Katie studied each name, each species, memorizing their physical characteristics and natural abilities. One name stood out. Cadet Thar, a young Zentari male. His scores were the lowest in the entire class. His notes indicated he was undersized for his species, lacking the typical Zentari strength advantage. Katie smiled slightly. She understood what it meant to be underestimated. The next morning, Katie arrived at Arena 7 at 0545 hours. The training space was medium-sized, with standard gravity settings. Equipment lined the walls. Weights, impact dummies, obstacle courses. It was basic compared to the advanced arenas she had seen, but it would be enough. At 0600 hours, the first cadets began to arrive. They came in slowly, talking amongst themselves, showing no urgency. By 0615, only 20 of the 30 cadets were present. Katie waited silently in the center of the arena. At 0625, the last group arrived. Among them was Cadet Thar, the young Zentari. He was smaller than other Zentari she had seen. Only about 6 feet tall with thinner arms. This is the instructor? One cadet asked, a large Drexian with red scales. A human? They must be joking, another said. Katie stepped forward. I am Lieutenant Katie Morgan. I will be your combat instructor for this training cycle. Combat instructor? Thar laughed, his forearms spreading in a mocking gesture. You are from Earth, a one-gravity world with no real predators. What can you possibly teach us about combat? Several other cadets joined in the laughter. Katie remained calm. Class begins at 0600 hours. 10 of you were late. Tomorrow, anyone who arrives after 0600 will run the obstacle course 5 times before training begins. Run? A Corvan cadet snorted. We are warriors, not messengers. Then be here on time, Katie said simply. She walked to the center of the arena. Training starts now. We will begin with basic technique assessment. This is waste of time, Thar said loudly. We are supposed to learn from warriors, not from soft-world humans who have never faced real combat. The other cadets murmured in agreement. Katie looked at Thar directly. You failed your combat assessment because you relied on strength you do not have. All of you failed because you think being born strong makes you warriors. It does not. And you think being born weak makes you better? Thar shot back. I think being born weak made us smarter, Katie replied. Tomorrow, 0600 hours. Arena 7. Anyone who wants to learn something will be here on time. She walked out of the arena, leaving 30 confused cadets behind her. Thar watched her go, then turned to his classmates. "What kind of instructor just leaves?" "A human one," another cadet answered, and they all laughed again. But none of them noticed that Katie was smiling as she left. She had seen this attitude before. She knew exactly how to handle it. Tomorrow would be very educational. The next morning, Katie arrived at Arena 7 at 0530 hours. She wore a simple training uniform and carried nothing except a water container. The arena lights were still dim, the equipment untouched. She walked to the center of the training floor and began her warm-up routine. Stretches first, then basic movements. Punches, kicks, footwork patterns. Each motion was precise and controlled. At 0555, the first cadets began to arrive. To Katie's surprise, all 30 were present by 0558. They stood in a loose group near the entrance, watching her with expressions that ranged from curious to hostile. At exactly 0600, Katie stopped her warm-up and faced the class. "Good, you are all on time." She gestured to the open floor. "Form a line, arms length apart." The cadets moved slowly, talking amongst themselves. The line they formed was crooked and uneven. "This is basic discipline," Katie said. "In combat, formation matters. Spacing matters. If you cannot form a straight line, you cannot hold a defensive position." "We are not here to learn formations," Thar said from the middle of the line. "We need to learn combat." "You need to learn everything," Katie corrected. "Combat is not just fighting. It is discipline, control, awareness, and technique." "Technique?" A Drexian cadet named Krell stepped forward from the line. He was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, with thick scales and a tail that looked like it could break bones. "I do not need technique. I am Drexian. Our strength is 3 times that of most species. And yet you failed your combat assessment," Katie pointed out. Krell's eyes narrowed. "Because the test was unfair. They put me against multiple opponents with weapons. Combat is rarely fair," Katie said. She walked closer to Krell, looking up at him. Even standing straight, the top of her head barely reached his chest. "Your strength is impressive, but strength alone did not win your test." "Because I lacked proper training," Krell growled. "Training from a real warrior." The other cadets murmured in agreement. Katie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You believe humans are not real warriors. Your world has low gravity," Thar said. "Your bodies are weak compared to ours. What could you possibly teach us?" Katie nodded slowly. "I understand. You see Earth as a soft world. Safe and easy." She looked at each cadet in turn. "Let me tell you about Earth. My planet has gravity of 1 g, yes. But that same planet has environments that range from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. We have storms that can destroy entire cities. We have predators that hunt in packs, with intelligence and strategy. But no predator stronger than you," another cadet said. "Correct," Katie agreed. "Humans are not the strongest, or the fastest, or the most durable. We survived because we learned to be smart. We created weapons, tactics, and fighting techniques that let us defeat things much stronger than ourselves." "Stories," Krell said dismissively. Katie smiled. "Cadet Krell, you want to learn combat. Let me make you an offer. Spar with me. Right now, in this arena." The cadets fell silent. "Spar with you?" Krell repeated. "You are half my size." "Afraid?" Katie asked simply. Krell's tail lashed behind him. "I do not want to hurt you." "Then do not," Katie said. "But if you win, I will request a transfer. I will admit that humans cannot teach combat to Galactic Coalition cadets. I will leave." The cadets began talking excitedly amongst themselves. "And if you win?" Krell asked. "Then all of you train seriously under my instruction. No complaints, no arguments, no mockery. You give me your full effort for this entire training cycle." Thar laughed. "That is not even a fair trade. Krell will crush you in seconds." Katie looked at him. Then you have nothing to lose by accepting. Krell cracked his knuckles. A sound like rocks grinding together. I accept. But I will not hold back completely. You need to understand the difference between our species. I already do, Katie said. That is why I am confident. She walked to the equipment wall and pressed a control panel. The arena's settings adjusted. Barriers rose from the floor to create a sparring ring, and the overhead lights brightened to full illumination. Standard sparring rules, Katie said. Match ends when one person submits, is unconscious, or leaves the ring. No weapons, no lethal techniques. Agreed, Krell said. He stepped into the ring, his clawed feet scraping against the floor. Katie entered from the opposite side. She looked tiny compared to the Drexian, a fact that made several cadets laugh nervously. This will be quick, Thar said to the cadet beside him. Too quick, the other agreed. The human is brave but foolish. Up in the observation deck, Brandon Pierce sat forward in his chair. He had come to watch Katie's first full training session. Now he gripped the armrests tightly, worried. She knows what she is doing, he whispered to himself. She has to know. Down in the arena, Katie and Krell faced each other across the ring. Begin when ready, Katie said calmly. Krell did not hesitate. He charged forward with surprising speed for his size, his arms reaching out to grapple. His plan was simple. Grab the small human, lift her, and throw her from the ring. Easy victory. Katie sidestepped at the last possible moment. Krell's hands grasped only air. He stumbled slightly, then turned quickly. Running already? He taunted. Observing, Katie replied. Krell charged again, this time swinging one massive arm in a wide arc meant to catch Katie wherever she dodged. The blow would not kill her, but it would definitely knock her unconscious. Katie ducked under the swing and moved to Krell's left side. She did not attack, just repositioned. Stand still and fight, Krell roared. Why? Katie asked. You are stronger than me. Direct confrontation would be stupid. She continued to evade his attacks, moving with minimal effort. Each time Krell swung or charged, Katie was already somewhere else. She made it look effortless. The cadets watching began to shift uncomfortably. This was not going as they expected. She is just running away, Thar said. But his voice lacked conviction. No, another cadet said slowly. She is studying him. Watch her eyes. It was true. Katie tracked every movement Krell made. She noted which leg he favored, how he balanced his weight, the pattern of his attacks. She was collecting information. Krell was breathing harder now, frustrated by his inability to land a hit. Stop dodging and fight me properly. Properly? Katie stopped moving and faced him directly. You want me to trade blows with someone 3 times my weight and twice my strength? That would not be proper. That would be suicide. Then you admit you cannot win, Krell said triumphantly. I admit that I am smarter than that, Katie corrected. She shifted her stance, lowering her center of gravity. You have shown me your technique, Cadet Krell. Now let me show you mine. Krell charged again, but this time Katie did not dodge away. She moved forward, inside his reach, faster than he expected. Her hand struck his leading knee from the side, not hard but precisely placed. Krell's leg buckled. His momentum carried him forward, but now he was off balance. Katie flowed with his movement like water. She grabbed his extended arm, not to stop him but to guide him. She turned her body, using her hip as a fulcrum point, and suddenly Krell found himself airborne. The throw was called Seoi Nage in one of Earth's old martial arts. Katie had practiced it 10,000 times. She knew exactly how to make it work against larger opponents. Krell hit the ground hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Before he could recover, Katie was on him. Her arm locked around his thick neck in a chokehold. She applied pressure to the blood vessels on either side, cutting off circulation to his brain. Submit or sleep, Katie said calmly. Your choice. Krell struggled for 3 seconds. His superior strength meant nothing in this position. The angle was wrong, the leverage perfect. His vision began to blur. He tapped the ground twice with his free hand. The universal signal for submission. Katie released him immediately and stood up. She offered her hand to help him rise. Krell took it, his expression stunned. He stood slowly, rubbing his neck. The arena was completely silent. "That is Earth training," Katie said, loud enough for all the cadets to hear. "We are not strong. So we learned to be efficient. We learned leverage, timing, and technique. We learned to use an opponent's strength against them." She turned to face the entire class. "You all failed your combat assessments because you relied only on your natural advantages. You are strong, but you do not know how to fight. Real combat is not about who has bigger muscles. It is about who has better technique, better strategy, better discipline." Thar stared at her, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. "How did you do that?" "Training," Katie said simply. "Thousands of hours of training. That same training is what I will teach you. If you are willing to learn." She walked to the center of the arena. "Tomorrow morning, 0600 hours. We begin proper instruction. Anyone who thinks they are too good to learn from a human can leave now and request a different class." Nobody moved. "Good," Katie said. She looked at Krell. "You are strong, cadet. With proper technique, you could be dangerous. Are you willing to learn?" Krell nodded slowly. "Yes, instructor. Then we start tomorrow." Katie dismissed the class with a simple gesture. The cadets filed out of the arena slowly, talking in hushed voices. Krell was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked back at Katie. "I underestimated you," he said. "Everyone does," Katie replied. "That is Earth's greatest advantage." When the arena was empty, Brandon came down from the observation deck. "That was incredible," he said. "But you know this is just the beginning, right? Word will spread." "I know," Katie said. "The other instructors will not like this." "I know that too." Brandon smiled. "Good. Maybe humanity will finally get some respect around here." Katie picked up her water container. "Respect is not given. It is earned. We have a lot more earning to do." News of Katie's victory over Krell spread through Harmony Prime Station faster than anyone expected. By the evening meal, cadets from other classes were talking about it. By the next morning, other instructors had heard the story. Most of them did not believe it. "A human through a Drexian?" Commander Vraxis said when an assistant brought him the report. "Impossible. The weight difference alone makes it absurd." "Multiple cadets witnessed it, Commander," the assistant said. "And the arena's security footage confirms the account." Vraxis pulled up the video on his terminal. He watched in silence as Katie dodged Krell's attacks, then executed the throw and submission hold. He replayed the sequence 3 times. "Technique," he muttered. "She used leverage and timing." He deactivated the display and sat back in his chair. "Interesting." In Arena 7, Katie's second day of training was very different from the first. All 30 cadets arrived 15 minutes early. They formed a straight line without being told. When Katie began instruction, they listened in complete silence. She started with basics: stance, balance, movement. Things that seemed simple, but formed the foundation of everything else. "Your natural instinct is to use power," Katie explained, as she demonstrated proper foot positioning. "Power has its place. But without balance, power means nothing. A strong attack from a weak position will fail." She had Thar step forward. The young Zentari was nervous but determined. "Push me," Katie said. "Use all 4 of your arms and try to move me backward." Thar hesitated, then placed his 4 hands against Katie's shoulders and pushed. Katie's feet slid back slightly, but she did not fall. "Now watch," Katie said. She adjusted her stance, widening her base and lowering her center of gravity. "Push again. Same force." Thar pushed harder this time. Katie did not move at all. "Stance creates stability," Katie explained to the class. "This is true regardless of your species. Balance is physics. And physics works the same everywhere in the galaxy." The morning session continued with more foundational work. Katie taught them how to fall without injury, how to move efficiently, how to control their breathing during exertion. Nothing flashy, but everything essential. During the break, Krell approached her. "Instructor Morgan," he said formally. "I have been thinking about our match yesterday." "And?" Katie asked. "You moved inside my reach. That seems dangerous. If I had caught you, my strength advantage would have won immediately." "Correct," Katie agreed. "But that is the key to fighting larger opponents. You must take calculated risks. If you stay on the outside, your reach disadvantage means you never land a hit. Inside the reach of a larger opponent is actually the safest place to be, if you are fast enough." Krell nodded slowly, processing this. "This is not how Drexian warriors are taught." "How are they taught?" Katie asked. "We are taught to use our strength to dominate, to overpower opponents before they can react. That works well when you fight weaker opponents," Katie said. "But what happens when you fight someone stronger than you?" Krell was quiet for a moment. "We are trained to avoid such fights. And that is why you failed your combat assessment," Katie said gently. "Real combat does not let you choose only favorable matchups. You must be ready for any opponent." Training continued through the afternoon. By the end of the day, all 30 cadets were exhausted but focused. They were beginning to understand that combat was far more complex than they had realized. Over the next week, Katie's methods produced visible results. Thar, the undersized Zentari, learned to use leverage instead of strength. He could now throw opponents twice his mass. Other cadets improved their timing and reaction speed. Even Krell, who had relied entirely on brute force, began to show tactical thinking in his movements. But success brought attention. On the 8th day of training, Commander Vraxis arrived at Arena 7 with 2 other senior instructors. They stood in the observation area, watching Katie teach. "Interesting approach," one instructor said, a Corvan named Vex, who taught advanced combat to the elite cadets. "But these are low-level students. Let us see how her techniques work against real warriors." Vraxis said nothing, but his expression was thoughtful. After the training session ended, Vraxis came down to the arena floor. "Lieutenant Morgan," he said, "your students show improvement." "Thank you, Commander," Katie replied. "However, some of the other instructors have questions about your methods. They believe your success is limited to teaching failures, basic skills." Vraxis gestured with 2 of his arms. "They do not believe human techniques would work against trained warriors from strong species." "I see," Katie said carefully. "Instructor Vex has suggested a demonstration," Vraxis continued. "A match between you and one of the elite cadets, to show whether human combat methods have real military value." Katie looked up at the observation deck where Vex watched with a smug expression. "A test," she said flatly. "Consider it an opportunity," Vraxis said. "If you succeed, human combat training might be added to the Academy's standard curriculum. If you fail, well, at least you tried." Brandon, who had been watching the session from the side, stepped forward. "Commander, that is not a fair evaluation. Elite cadets have years of training already. They are at a different level." "Precisely the point," Vraxis said. "We need to know if human methods work against trained opponents, not just novices." Katie held up a hand to stop Brandon from arguing further. "I will accept, Commander, under one condition." "Which is?" Vraxis asked. "I choose the arena and the setting. If this is a demonstration of technique versus natural advantage, the environment should be neutral." Vraxis considered this. "Agreed." "Which arena?" "Arena 7, Katie said. "Standard gravity, no environmental effects. Pure technique." "Very well. Tomorrow at 1,400 hours. I will select the elite cadet myself." Vraxis turned to leave, then paused. "I suggest you prepare carefully, Lieutenant. The cadet I choose will not be gentle." After Vraxis left, Brandon grabbed Katie's arm. "This is a trap. They want you to fail publicly so they can dismiss your entire program." "I know," Katie said. "Then why did you accept?" "Because if I refused, they would say I was afraid. At least this way, I control part of the conditions." Katie looked at the arena walls. "Besides, I am not planning to fail. Who do you think he will choose? Brandon asked. Does not matter, Katie said. Technique beats natural advantage. That is the whole point of Earth's martial arts. The next day, Arena 7 was packed. News of the demonstration had spread through the entire academy. Hundreds of cadets lined the observation decks. Instructors from every department came to watch. Even station personnel not connected to the academy found reasons to be nearby. Katie arrived early and walked the arena floor, checking the surface and testing the gravity. Everything was standard. Just as she requested, her 30 students were in the front row of the observation deck, nervous but supportive. Krell had his claws gripped tight on the railing. Thar's 4 arms kept fidgeting. At exactly 1,400 hours, Commander Vraxis entered with the elite cadet he had selected. It was Krell's brother. The Drexian was even larger than Krell, standing 7.5 feet tall with thicker scales and more developed musculature. His name was Varan, and he was the top-ranked elite combat cadet in his class. This is Senior Cadet Varan, Vraxis announced. He has trained in Drexian combat arts since childhood. He has won 47 matches against various species in academy tournaments. Varan stepped into the arena. He looked down at Katie without expression. I mean no disrespect, instructor. But I have trained my entire life for combat. I will not lose to demonstrate a point. I would not want you to, Katie said honestly. Fight with everything you have. A moment, Krell called from the observation deck. He vaulted over the railing and landed on the arena floor, approaching Varan. The 2 Drexians spoke in their native language, too quiet for others to hear. Varan's expression changed. He looked at Katie with new interest, then nodded to his brother. Krell returned to the observation area. I told him not to underestimate you, he explained to Thar. I told him what you did to me. Will it help? Thar asked. No, Krell said. Varan is much better than I am. But at least he will take her seriously from the start. In the arena, Commander Vraxis explained the rules. Standard sparring format. Match ends with submission or knockout. No weapons, no lethal techniques. Katie and Varan moved to opposite sides of the arena. Begin, Vraxis called out. Varan did not charge like his brother had. He advanced carefully, his guard up, watching Katie's movements. He had heard about her speed and technique. He would not be caught off guard. Katie mirrored his caution, circling to the left. They tested each other with small movements, neither committing to an attack. Then Varan struck. His punch was lightning fast, aimed at Katie's center mass. She deflected it, but barely. The force behind the blow made her arm go numb. He is much stronger than Krell, she thought. Varan pressed forward with a combination of strikes. Katie dodged and blocked, but each contact jarred her bones. She could not afford to take many direct hits. She is defending well, Brandon said from the observation deck. But she cannot keep that up forever. Varan seemed to realize this too. He increased his aggression, throwing powerful strikes from multiple angles. Katie gave ground, moving backward. The human is retreating, Vex said with satisfaction. Superior strength always wins. But Katie was not retreating randomly. She was positioning herself. Her back foot touched the arena wall. She had run out of space. Varan saw his opportunity. He launched a devastating straight punch with all his weight behind it. Aimed at Katie's head. If it connected, the match would be over. Katie waited until the last possible moment. Then she dropped low and rolled to the side. Varan's fist missed her by inches and slammed into the arena wall. The reinforced composite material cracked under the impact. Varan pulled his hand back, surprised by the damage. Katie was already moving. She came up behind him and struck the back of his knee with a precise kick. Varan stumbled. Now, Katie said to herself. She grabbed Varan's extended arm and executed the same throw she had used on Krell, but with a difference. Varan was heavier and more skilled. He would know how to counter a standard throw. So Katie did not use a standard throw. She combined 3 different techniques into one flowing motion. The initial grab from judo, a leg sweep from another martial art, and a rotational twist that used all of Varan's momentum against him. The physics were perfect. Varan's mass, his forward momentum, his position, all worked together. Katie added her force not to stop him but to redirect and amplify. Varan flew through the air with tremendous speed. He twisted, trying to control his landing, but the velocity was too great. He hit the arena wall with an impact that echoed through the entire station. The reinforced composite material, designed to withstand standard combat forces, cracked deeply. A spiderweb of fractures spread across the surface. Part of the wall crumpled inward. Alarms blared. Emergency lights activated. Varan slid down the damaged wall and collapsed to the floor. He was breathing but unconscious. Medical personnel rushed into the arena. Everyone else simply stared in stunned silence. Katie stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard. She looked at her hands, then at the damaged wall, then at Commander Vraxis. That, she said clearly, is what Earth training produces. Varan woke up 3 minutes after hitting the wall. The medical team had already scanned him and confirmed he had no serious injuries. His thick Drexian scales and dense bone structure had protected him from permanent damage, but he would be sore for several days. He sat up on the medical stretcher and looked directly at Katie. "How did you do that?" "Physics," Katie said simply, "and about 10,000 hours of practice." Varan slowly stood, waving away the medical personnel. He walked to where Katie stood and extended one clawed hand. "I underestimated you. That will not happen again." Katie shook his hand. Around them, the arena remained silent. Hundreds of cadets and instructors watched, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Commander Vraxis approached the damaged wall, examining the cracks with 2 of his hands. "This wall is reinforced composite, rated for impacts up to 15,000 newtons." He turned to look at Katie. "You should not have been able to do this." "I did not do it," Katie said. "Cadet Varan's own force did it. I just gave that force a direction." Vraxis studied her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. Emergency staff meeting. 1 hour. All senior instructors. He looked at Katie directly. "You will attend and explain your methods." The crowd began to disperse slowly. Katie's 30 students rushed down from the observation deck, surrounding her with excited questions. "That was incredible," Thar said, all 4 arms gesturing wildly. "You threw him like he weighed nothing." "He weighs considerably more than nothing," Katie said dryly. "That is what made the technique work." Krell pushed through the crowd to reach Katie. "My brother is the best fighter in the elite class. He has never been defeated in tournament, and you beat him in less than 2 minutes." "I did not beat him," Katie corrected. "I showed him a different approach to combat." "There is a difference." Varan, still rubbing his shoulder where he hit the wall, joined them. "She is right. That was not a victory through superior strength or even superior skill. That was a victory through superior understanding of leverage and momentum." "Exactly," Katie said. "That understanding is what I am trying to teach all of you. Your bodies are weapons, yes, but your minds are more important weapons. If you understand physics, anatomy, and timing, you can defeat opponents who seem unbeatable." Brandon arrived, grinning widely. The other instructors looked like someone had slapped them. "This is going to change everything." "Ah, maybe," Katie said. "Or maybe it will make them more hostile. We will find out in the staff meeting." 1 hour later, Katie entered the conference room where 20 instructors waited. The atmosphere was tense. Some instructors looked curious. Others looked skeptical or even angry. Commander Vraxis sat at the head of the table. "Lieutenant Morgan, you have proven that human combat techniques can be effective even against elite cadets from warrior species. Now you will explain how." Katie stood before the group. She felt their eyes on her. Judging. Measuring. Doubting. "Earth is a one-gravity world," she began. "We do not have the natural advantages that many of your species possess. Humans are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most durable. For most of our evolution, we were prey as often as we were predators. Then how did you survive to develop space travel? Instructor Vex asked. The Corvin's tone was challenging. We learned to think, Katie said. We created tools, weapons, strategies. But more importantly, we fought each other. For 10,000 years of recorded history, humans have been in almost constant warfare, nation against nation, tribe against tribe, sometimes even family against family. The room was quiet. Several instructors exchanged glances. During those 10,000 years, we developed hundreds of different combat systems. Katie continued. Each culture, each region, each time period produced new techniques, some focused on grappling, some on striking, some on weapons. We tested these techniques constantly in real combat. She gestured to her own body. I am small, even by human standards. In a fair fight based on strength, I would lose to almost anyone in this room. So humans like me learn techniques that do not depend on being stronger. We learn to use leverage, timing, and an opponent's own force against them. But those techniques require years of training, a Heptari instructor said. Most species can achieve combat effectiveness much faster by simply using their natural advantages. True. Katie agreed. But what happens when those species face an opponent with even greater natural advantages? They have no backup plan, no alternative approach. They rely entirely on being stronger or faster. She pulled up a display showing the footage of her match with Varan. Watch this throw again. I did not overpower Cadet Varan. I redirected his momentum. His mass and speed became the weapon, not mine. This technique works regardless of the strength difference between opponents. Commander Vraxis leaned forward. You are saying human techniques are more adaptable? Yes, Katie said, because we developed them specifically for fighting opponents stronger than ourselves. Every human martial art is built on the assumption that you might face someone bigger, stronger, or better armed. We had to be creative to survive. Vex made a dismissive sound. Creative techniques are interesting, but in real military combat, you need soldiers who can kill efficiently. Your fancy throws will not help against someone with a plasma rifle. You are correct, Katie said calmly. But military combat is not only shooting. It includes hand-to-hand, close quarters, shipboard fighting, and situations where weapons are unavailable. In those scenarios, technique matters. She advanced the footage to show another angle. Also, human combat training teaches something more important than specific moves. It teaches adaptability, discipline, and how to assess opponents quickly. These skills apply to all combat situations, armed or unarmed. A Drexian instructor spoke up. I am Senior Instructor Morg. I teach weapons combat to elite cadets. Are you claiming your unarmed techniques would work against an armed opponent? And, in the right circumstances, yes, Katie said. Humans have techniques specifically designed for disarming opponents. But I am not claiming human methods are superior in all situations. I am saying they are valuable additions to coalition military training. The discussion continued for 2 hours. Instructors asked questions about specific techniques, training methods, and practical applications. Some remained skeptical, but others showed genuine interest. Finally, Commander Vraxis called for a decision. I propose we expand Lieutenant Morgan's role. In addition to teaching Class 7D, she will develop a curriculum in human combat techniques. This curriculum will be offered as an elective for all cadets. I vote against, Vex said immediately. This is a waste of resources. I vote in favor, Instructor Morg said. I saw the footage. Those techniques have practical value. The vote was close, but it passed. Katie would be allowed to teach a broader curriculum. As the meeting ended, Vex approached Katie. You have impressed some people today, he said coldly. But I am not convinced. Your students are failures. And Varan was caught off guard. These are not real tests of your methods. Then what would be a real test? Katie asked. Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. Fight me. In the grand arena, before the entire academy, I am undefeated in 200 matches. If your human techniques are truly superior, prove it against the Academy's champion. Katie looked at the Corvan. He was larger than Varan, with a reputation for brutal efficiency. Fighting him would be dangerous, but refusing would undermine everything she had just accomplished. I accept, she said. But I have conditions. Name them, Vex said. The match will be a teaching demonstration, not a dominance display. I will explain techniques as I use them, for the educational benefit of all observers. Vex laughed. You want to give me a lecture while we fight? Fine. It will make your defeat more humiliating. We will see, Katie said. Commander Vraxis, who had been listening, stepped forward. This is highly unusual. But if both parties agree, I will allow it. The match will take place in 3 days, in the Grand Arena. 8-10. This match, as Katie left the conference room, Brandon caught up with her. Are you insane? Vex is a monster. He has killed opponents in tournament matches. I know his record, Katie said calmly. Then you know this is suicide. He outweighs you by 200 pounds. His reach is twice yours. He has been fighting since before you were born. And yet I still accepted, Katie said. Because this is not about me, Brandon. This is about proving that humans have something valuable to offer the Coalition. If I back down now, every human instructor who comes after me will face the same dismissal I faced. Brandon was quiet for a moment. You really think you can win? I think I can show that human techniques work against any opponent, regardless of their advantages. Katie smiled slightly. That might not be the same as winning, but it is what matters. Over the next 3 days, Katie trained harder than she ever had. She studied footage of Vex's matches, learning his patterns and preferences. She practiced her most advanced techniques, the ones she had been holding in reserve. Her students helped however they could. Krell and Varan sparred with her, letting her practice against large opponents. Thar served as her assistant, managing her schedule and keeping other cadets away when she needed to focus. Word of the upcoming match spread beyond Harmony Prime. Other Coalition stations heard about it. Some high-ranking military officials announced they would attend. On the morning of the match, Katie woke early and went through her normal routine. Meditation first, to calm her mind, then stretching and warm-up exercises. She ate a light breakfast and reviewed her strategy one final time. Brandon came to her quarters 2 hours before the match. The Grand Arena is completely full. Standing room only. I have never seen this many people at an Academy event. 1. No pressure then, Katie said with a slight smile. Katie, listen to me. If this goes badly, you can submit. There is no shame in losing to the Academy champion. I am not planning to lose, Katie said. She finished tying her boots and stood. I am planning to teach the biggest lesson of my career. They walked together to the Grand Arena. The facility was enormous, built to hold 5,000 spectators. Every seat was filled. Cadets from all classes were present. Instructors from every department. Even Commander Vraxis was there, sitting in the command box. Katie's 30 students occupied an entire section, all wearing makeshift signs supporting their instructor. Thar held one that read, Earth Training Works, in standard Coalition script. Katie entered the arena floor and looked up at the massive crowd. For a moment, she felt very small and very alone. Then she remembered why she was here. Not for personal glory, but to prove that humanity deserved respect. To show that being from a soft world did not mean being soft. She thought of all the humans who would come after her. The ones who would teach and serve in the Galactic Coalition. This fight was for them. Vex entered from the opposite side. He wore traditional Corvan combat armor, painted with his tournament victories. He looked confident and utterly dangerous. They met in the center of the arena. Commander Vraxis's voice echoed through the speakers. This match will demonstrate combat techniques. Standard tournament rules apply. Are both participants ready? Ready, Vex said. Katie nodded. Then begin. Vex did not waste time with intimidation. The moment the match began, He attacked with the efficiency that had made him Academy champion. His strikes came in rapid sequences, each one powerful enough to break bones. Katie moved constantly, never staying in one place. She dodged, deflected, and redirected. But she did not retreat. That was important. She needed to show she could stand her ground. Corvan combat style emphasizes continuous pressure, Katie called out, loud enough for the arena to hear. They train to overwhelm opponents before they can form a defense. She ducked under a spinning kick and countered with a quick strike to Vex's knee. The blow connected but seemed to do no damage. Notice his armor protects major strike points, Katie continued. So we target joints and movement instead. Vex snarled and increased his speed. His fists moved in a blur, forcing Katie to fully commit to defense. In the observation area, Brandon gripped the railing. She is analyzing him out loud, making it educational. Foolish, another instructor said. It divides her focus, but Katie had trained for this. Speaking during combat was another skill, one that required complete control. It proved mastery, not distraction. Vex landed a grazing blow on Katie's shoulder. The impact spun her halfway around and numbed her entire left arm. The crowd gasped. And that is why evasion is primary, Katie said, shaking feeling back into her arm. Taking even partial hits from a Corvan is dangerous. She shifted tactics, moving in closer. Vex tried to maintain distance, using his longer reach advantage. But Katie pressed forward relentlessly. In close quarters, reach advantage disappears, she explained. The same length that allows long strikes becomes a limitation in tight spaces. She was inside Vex's guard now, too close for his most powerful techniques. She struck his torso 3 times in rapid succession. Precise hits to nerve clusters. Vex grunted in pain and shoved her back with both hands. Katie rolled with the force, coming up several feet away. Corvan physiology has nerve points similar to human anatomy, Katie said. Striking these creates temporary weakness, without permanent damage. Vex's breathing was slightly heavier now. He had expected to win quickly, but Katie was proving more difficult than anticipated. You talk too much, Vex growled. I am teaching, Katie replied. That was the agreement. Vex decided to end this. He charged forward with his signature technique, the one that had defeated dozens of opponents. It was a combination of strikes and grappling that utilized his superior strength and speed simultaneously. Katie had watched footage of this technique dozens of times. She knew exactly how it worked. As Vex closed in, Katie did something unexpected. She dropped low and swept his leading leg. Not hard, just enough to disrupt his timing by a fraction of a second. That fraction was all she needed. Katie flowed into the opening like water finding a crack. Her hands found purchase on Vex's armor, and she executed a technique called Uchimata, a throw that lifted opponents completely off the ground. But Vex was too heavy for a standard throw. His mass and momentum would break through it. So Katie did not try to stop his momentum. She added to it. She twisted as she threw, using her entire body as a lever. The physics stacked perfectly. Vex's charge, his weight, his downward angle, all combined with Katie's rotational force. Vex flew. He tumbled through the air, spinning uncontrollably, and slammed into the grand arena wall. The impact was tremendous. Vex hit with enough force to create a crater in the reinforced material. Cracks spider-webbed across the surface, some extending 10 feet in each direction. The entire arena shook. Dust and fragments of composite material rained down. Alarms blared even louder than they had in Arena 7. Emergency protocols activated automatically. Vex slid down the damaged wall and collapsed. He did not move. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. The crowd was completely silent, stunned by what they had witnessed. Katie walked to where Vex lay. The medical scanners confirmed he was unconscious, but alive, with no critical injuries. His armor had absorbed most of the impact. She knelt beside him and checked his breathing. Satisfied he would recover, she stood and faced the crowd. That technique is called the principle of force multiplication, Katie said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. I did not throw Cadet Vex through strength. I redirected his own momentum and added precise rotational energy at the exact moment his balance was compromised. The wall damage is not from my power. It is from his. She turned to look at the cracked wall. This is what Earth training produces. Not stronger warriors, but smarter ones. We learned these techniques because we had to. We were not the apex predators on our world. We were not the strongest or fastest. We survived through intelligence, adaptability, and the willingness to learn from every fight. Commander Vraxis stood in his observation box, staring at the destruction. 2 damaged arenas in less than 2 weeks. Both caused by a human who weighed barely half of what her opponents weighed. Katie continued her explanation to the silent crowd. Every species here has natural advantages. Zentari have 4 arms. Drexians have incredible strength. Korvans have speed and endurance. These are gifts from your evolution. But gifts alone do not make warriors. Discipline makes warriors. Training makes warriors. Understanding makes warriors. Vex stirred and opened his eyes. Medical personnel helped him sit up. He looked at Katie with an expression of disbelief. How? He asked simply. Practice, Katie said. And a different way of thinking about combat. Vex slowly stood, waving away assistance. He approached Katie and extended his hand. I was wrong about you. About humans. Your techniques are not inferior. They are sophisticated in ways I did not understand. Katie shook his hand. Thank you. But this was not about proving human superiority. It was about showing we have something valuable to contribute. Vex nodded. He turned to face Commander Vraxis in the observation box. Commander, I formally request to study human combat techniques. I believe they would make me a better instructor. The crowd erupted. Conversations broke out everywhere. Cadets argued and discussed what they had seen. Some instructors looked thoughtful, others still skeptical. Commander Vraxis activated the arena's communication system. His voice boomed through the speakers. The match is concluded. Lieutenant Katie Morgan is the victor. Cheers erupted from Katie's students. Thar was jumping up and down, all 4 arms waving. Krell and Varen were shouting support. Furthermore, Vraxis continued. Effective immediately. Human combat techniques will become mandatory curriculum for all combat cadets at Harmony Prime Academy. Lieutenant Morgan is promoted to Chief Combat Instructor. She will oversee development of this new program. More cheers, though some were less enthusiastic. All instructors will attend seminars on human training methods, Vraxis added. We have much to learn from our human colleagues. The crowd began to disperse slowly. Katie's students rushed down to the arena floor, surrounding her with congratulations and questions. Even cadets from other classes approached, asking when they could attend her training sessions. Brandon fought through the crowd to reach Katie. You did it. You actually did it. Brandon fought through the crowd to reach Katie. We did it, Katie corrected. You supported me when no one else would. What happens now? Brandon asked. Now we teach, Katie said. She looked at the crowd of cadets waiting to speak with her. We show them that humans are not just diversity members of the coalition. We are partners with unique skills and perspectives. Over the next several weeks, everything changed at Harmony Prime Academy. Katie's training program expanded rapidly. She designed courses for different skill levels, from basic to advanced. Other instructors began incorporating human techniques into their own classes. Vex became her assistant instructor, bringing credibility from his reputation and genuinely wanting to learn. He was surprised to discover how much human techniques complemented his natural Korvan advantages. Thar graduated from Class 7D at the top of his group. The undersized Zentari, who had mocked Katie on her first day, was now one of her most dedicated students. He requested assignment as a combat instructor himself, wanting to teach others what he had learned. Krell and Varon both qualified for advanced special operations training, something neither had been able to achieve before learning human techniques. Their strength combined with leverage-based methods made them exceptionally dangerous. Katie's class evolved from 30 failures to 30 successful graduates. Every one of them passed their combat assessments. Several received commendations for excellence. Word spread beyond Harmony Prime. Other coalition military academies requested information about human combat training. Some asked if Katie could visit to demonstrate techniques. Others requested that human instructors be assigned to their facilities. 6 months after Katie's arrival, Commander Vraxis called her to his office. "Lieutenant Morgan, I have received communications from the Coalition Military Command. They want to establish human combat training programs at 15 major academies." "That is excellent news, Commander," Katie said. "They are requesting that you oversee this expansion. You would coordinate between academies, train new instructors, and develop standardized curriculum." Vraxis folded 2 of his arms. "It is a significant promotion and responsibility." Katie considered this. "I would need assistance. Brandon Pierce should be included. He understands the educational and cultural aspects." "Agreed," Vraxis said. "I have already recommended him, and I want some of my former students involved. Thar, specifically. He understands what it means to be underestimated, and has the teaching skill to help others." Vraxis made a gesture of approval. "I will arrange it." 3 months later, Katie stood in the newly repaired Grand Arena. The wall had been reconstructed with even stronger materials, but they left a small section of the original damage visible, a reminder of what had happened there. 50 new combat instructor candidates filled the arena floor. They came from 15 different species, representing academies across Coalition space. All of them were here to learn human fighting techniques. Among them was Thar, now a full instructor himself. Krell and Varan were there too, having volunteered to help demonstrate techniques for the training program. Katie walked to the center of the arena and looked at the assembled instructors. "Welcome to human combat training. Over the next 8 weeks, you will learn techniques that may seem strange or counterintuitive. You will question why we do things certain ways. That is good. Questions mean you are thinking." She gestured to the visible damage on the wall. "You see that crack? That is not a symbol of strength. It is a symbol of understanding. Understanding of physics, leverage, and timing. Every species here has natural advantages. We will not try to take those away. Instead, we will teach you how to maximize them through technique and intelligence." One of the candidates, a large Drexian, raised his hand. "Instructor Morgan, I have heard stories about humans. Some say you are weak. Others say you are the most dangerous species in the Coalition." "Which is true?" Katie smiled. "Both. We are weak compared to most species in raw physical power. But that weakness forced us to become smart, adaptable, and creative. We learned to win fights we should have lost. That is what makes us dangerous. Not strength, but the refusal to accept that strength is the only path to victory." She moved into a basic combat stance. "Now, let us begin. We start with something simple: how to fall without injury. This seems basic, but it is fundamental. In combat, you will fall or be thrown. If you cannot fall safely, you cannot continue fighting." Thar stepped forward to help demonstrate. The former struggling cadet was now confident and skilled, a living example of what human training could produce. As Katie began the first lesson, she thought about how far she had come. From being assigned to teach failures, to training the trainers who would spread human techniques across the entire Coalition. It had not been about proving humans were better. It had been about proving humans belonged, that their perspective and methods had value. In the observation deck, Brandon watched with satisfaction. Other human instructors had begun arriving at Coalition academies, and they were all being taken seriously now. Katie had opened that door. Commander Vraxis stood beside him. "Your Lieutenant Morgan has changed this academy. Perhaps she has changed the Coalition. She showed you something you did not expect," Brandon said. "She showed us that strength comes in many forms." Vraxis corrected. "We had become arrogant, believing our natural advantages made us superior warriors. She proved that intelligence and technique can overcome raw power. That is the human way," Brandon said. "We have always had to be smarter, because we could not be stronger. Then the Coalition is fortunate to have humans as members, Vraxis said. We need that perspective. Down on the arena floor, Katie continued teaching. The 50 instructors practiced falling techniques, learning to protect themselves. They would go on to teach thousands of cadets. Those cadets would become officers and soldiers throughout the Coalition military. And all of them would know that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing you are not the strongest. That adaptability matters more than natural advantage. That intelligence can defeat power. These were the lessons Earth had learned through thousands of years of warfare. Now they would become lessons for an entire galaxy. Katie looked at the repaired wall one more time and smiled. They had called Earth training easy. They had mocked human weakness. They had assumed a soft world produced soft warriors. They had been wrong. And now, as those cracks in the wall proved, the entire galaxy would learn what humans had always known. Victory does not belong to the strongest or fastest. Victory belongs to those who refuse to stop learning, adapting, and finding new ways to win. That was Earth's gift to the stars. Not conquest, not domination, but the wisdom that came from surviving against impossible odds. And as Katie taught the next generation of Coalition warriors, she knew that gift would spread. One technique at a time, one student at a time, one cracked wall at a time,